All right, what's going on, everybody? I got a special episode 3 here at Doobie's World. I got an old friend, Gloria Bonilla. Long time no see. Recently just came back from the Dominican Republic, so we're going to be giving you guys some travel tips about that. And again, so just the general layout, we'll give you as much pertinent information up front as we can, and then we'll kind of dive into her trip in more detail and talk about some of the things she did. So, first and foremost, what made you want to go to the Dominican Republic?
Well, it was the country that was chosen by our university, by our professors, because we already had connections there. So we wanted to do a research project abroad, and to our professors in my program, and it's the Masters of Public Health, I'm
just sorry to interrupt real quick, but just to give our listeners a quick brief layout. Grad school student, your major is what right now?
Public health.
Public health, and she just recently did a study abroad program and
independent research, and I go to the University of Virginia.
Right. So that's how she ended up being in the Dominican Republic. So,
yep.
Sorry, just to continue on there.
Yeah, our professors had connections with the head of the medical department at a university in Santo Domingo, which is the capital of the Dominican Republic. So they connected us with them and asked the partners over there what they would like the students from UVA to research. And the top three medical issues over there right now is diabetes, maternal health, and motorcycle accidents. So we decided to go with diabetes, and so
that's how you...
Yeah, and so then that's how we ended up going to the Dominican
Republic. Cool. So how long were you there?
We were there for 9.5 weeks.
9.5? Well, yeah, I did know that. It just felt like so much longer.
Yeah.
And do you know how much flights were? Just in general?
So we got our flights maybe 4 weeks before we actually had to go, so it was around $650.
Wow.
However, if you get it earlier than that, like if you plan ahead, it's like $400 or something.
Yeah, and considering it's the summer right now, it's probably peak season prices, would you say? Or
I
would you say?
think so, but I think the peak season is probably during spring break when people are going to Dominican Republic for like Punta Cana and things like that.
What do you think off-season prices look like?
I think it's probably $400.
About $400 for off-season. And this is flying out of, like, Reagan, or what airport are you flying out of? Because I'm here on the East Coast. But...
So I actually flew from Richmond, which was the cheaper one.
Okay.
If you fly out of D.C., I think it was like an extra $100.
Wow.
Yeah, so I would recommend looking at different airports.
How long was the flight?
It's 3 hours from the U.S., so we flew out of Georgia, Atlanta.
So you flew from Richmond, had a connecting flight in
Correct.
Georgia, and then took an international flight to the Dominican Republic.
And then from Richmond to Georgia, it's like an hour. So total like 4 hours. It's
okay.
Not bad at all.
So what cities did you go to?
Oh, I went to a lot. So I lived in Santo Domingo, so that's where I spent most of my time. But then I went to a city called Samaná, and then I went to another place called, Punta Cana. Everyone, I think, knows that place. And then we went to another city called Puerto Plata, and then I went to another called Bani.
So are all those, wow, that's quite a bit of cities. Are all those tourist cities? Or
No. Punta Cana definitely is. And then Samaná is like a really nice place to go to, but it's not as touristy. And then Puerto Plata used to be the original Punta Cana. That used to be where a lot of people used to go back in the day until Punta Cana became a bigger, like, touristy place. So, and then Bani is just a town, and I think that was the other place.
And but you only stayed at one of those places. Which city was it again?
No, I stayed in all of them.
Holy crap. Okay, so...
Yeah, except for Bani. We only went for the day.
Can you, and this may be a little bit of a tough question for you, but can you ballpark how expensive it was to stay at each one of those places? Or like just maybe like but you stayed, okay, so I know that you had stayed with the people that you were studying.
Yeah,
so you had about an apartment that fit 3 people.
Yeah, and that was an Airbnb apartment, and that was, if you look at their website, the one place that we stayed was $55 a night, and that was 3 bedrooms. In a kitchen and living room.
Okay, so about a 3-bedroom apartment was about $55 a night in Santo Domingo?
2.5 bathrooms. Yep.
2.5 bathrooms? Okay. For the tourist locations that you did go to, for the cities that you listed, so what amount of money would you recommend to someone to spend on tourism, like for things like attractions, activities, souvenirs?
So I would say if you're going to do an excursion, it can range anywhere from $50 to $100. If you look like a tourist, they're going to charge you more. We had friends, luckily, who was able to talk to people and get us a bunch of discounts. So saying that you're a student can get you a discount some places, or saying that, you know, you're doing research or something like that. But I think we spent around $50 per excursion.
And by excursion,
that can mean anything. So we did, in Puerto Plata, there was this place called the 27 Charcos. And it's basically these waterfalls, and you jump off these waterfalls. And that was, I think, about $30-$40, and that included a lunch buffet at the end of the excursion. And it's a 3-hour excursion, so it's definitely worth the money. I would definitely recommend that place. And then, yeah, another one was like a beach where you go to this private island. That was around $50, I think. And then another one was...
How many hours was that? For the
we did that for about 3 hours.
So each one's roughly about 3 hours, maybe.
Yeah. Well, and then the other one, yeah, I would actually say all of them were about 3 hours, because another one this was in Samana, and we took horses to hike up a mountain, and then that took us to like a huge waterfall, and that was, I think, around $50 or so.
All right, so the excursions are about 3 to 4 hours, usually no more than $50, and it's almost like somewhat of a day trip.
Yes. Yeah,
Cool.
Which is why I said I stayed in all those cities. I wasn't going just for the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, I've traveled, as you know, to several different countries, South America, different continents and whatnot, and I've always met some female travelers that are traveling alone. So how secure did you feel as, you know, a young female?
I did have other friends who were females who did go out on their own, and they, of course, would get catcalled, and I think that was the most extreme, is just getting catcalled.
What cities?
This was in Santo Domingo.
Okay. So you personally, would you say that's probably not like a place that you would, like if you were just, you know, a young female traveling by herself, like would you feel?
I think I'd feel safe. I would, because one of the girls that I met there, she was by herself. I mean, she was staying with a host family, but she would walk everywhere by herself, and she felt fine.
Where was she from?
So she's from Vermont, but she did do the Peace Corps for 2 years in Peru, and I think she's kind of been used to, you know, going and traveling on her own. So, yeah.
Did she speak Spanish fluently?
Yeah, it was really cool. Yeah, I mean, she learned it. It's her second language.
Okay, so again, still here on the topic of security here, though, but would you say that had a lot of an impact, though, on you, like, kind of rating security? Like,
if you can speak Spanish, I think you're a lot more secure. I think if you didn't, I would be a little more hesitant to be on my own. But just as a cautionary thing, I think as a female, unfortunately, we have to travel with someone to feel a little more safe. Obviously, don't travel alone by yourself at night at, you know, midnight by the sea, where you know, you never know what could happen.
Right.
Just travel responsibly. So that's what
so again, like, kind of actually dropping back to tourism attractions and things in that nature. So what would be, if you were, you know, just a tourist there for a few days, what would be a good amount of cash to carry on you, like, just for the day? Because remember when we were actually traveling, I had like that lockbox, and then I would only bring out like a certain amount of money.
Yeah. Okay, so if let's say you're not doing one of the excursions, or if you are, that's $50 to one side, and then to carry on you, I'd probably say another like $30 to $50. It depends on what you're doing, US dollars. Because if you're going out and you want to go to the beach, and then you want to get a couple drinks while you're there, each drink obviously amounts to something, and then you want to get lunch there, because if you're going to the beach, you're doing a whole day's trip of it. Yeah. So I would say like $30 if you're just going to the beach is fine.
But for I don't actually know the name of their currency.
It's pesos.
Okay. Yeah. Should have guessed that. Yeah. And obviously the dollar to the Dominican peso is that's quite nice in our favor.
No, I mean, not really. So it's like, let's say 500 pesos is $10. So, you know, if you do the math. But a lot of the things, surprisingly, wasn't as cheap as I thought it would be in different countries. Like, I visited Peru, and you can get a lot of things for a small amount of money, but there I think like a burger is $5 and a burger here is what, like $7, like if you go to a
so still kind of expensive.
Yeah, I would say I did not think that it was a really cheap place to travel.
Okay, I actually felt the same about Mexico. And for the listeners right now, if you're hearing like all these like marble sounds and just kind of I don't even know how to describe it really, Global has this gigantic pet turtle that has lasted pretty much the entire time that I've known her, and now like it's just grown and is just making all this noise in the background. But just listen out for that. She's a little feisty.
Yeah. She doesn't want to go to bed. So.
So here you're actually talking about this next question a little bit earlier. What's the one piece of information that you would want to pass on to someone?
Well, if we're talking about living wise, I guess.
No, not living wise. Like just tourism.
Oh, tourism.
Like someone just going down there for vacation.
I mean, go and do all these excursions. Don't just go to the beaches. The beaches are beautiful and everything, but the country has a lot of other things to offer. And also, engage with the people who live there. Like, in my opinion, if you're traveling to a different country, I think it's also, interesting to learn about the people who live there and the culture. So, people in the Dominican Republic are so friendly. They always want to talk. So they're very, very talkative. That's the one thing that I know about them. So if you just go up to them, start talking to them about life and stuff, and they can recommend you to where you should go, and they will then be your friend that can hook you up with a good discount because they know someone.
So how important would you say being fluent in Spanish was then?
For me, it was super helpful.
No, just as a tourist, if again, like not necessarily for you, but like as someone visiting the Dominican Republic for a week, for example.
So it depends on where you're going. If you're going to Punta Cana, you don't need to know any Spanish. You'll be fine because you're probably gonna go to a resort where everyone probably speaks English. If you're going to go to more local places, I think it's helpful to speak Spanish, at least if you have a basic foundation of the just basic terminology.
Right.
It'll go far. And people appreciate,
you trying.
Yeah.
If you can't do it correctly.
Yeah. And if you can't even do it correctly, they'll help you out. And they'll try to speak some English to you. So you'll be able to have some sort of conversation.
So what cities would you say that knowing Spanish might be more important than avoiding Punta Cana? Not avoiding Punta Cana, but like
well, in Puerto Plata, I think we only spoke Spanish the entire time. And then Santo Domingo, depending on where you go. If you're going to like just local areas within Santo Domingo, Spanish definitely helpful. If you're going to, near universities, most people speak English.
Yeah.
Universities. So I think Santo Domingo it all depends on where you go. How touristy of a place you decide to go to. If you go to the beaches, people are going to come up to you and try to sell you things, but they most likely do know some English, so you'll be able to get by with that and saying like no.
What beaches did that occur on though? Because I always try to avoid places like that.
There was a beach called Boca Chica in the Dominican Republic that was near Santo Domingo, and people would come up to you all the time.
So avoid that beach.
Yeah. And then, but it's still a really nice beach. Although if you go to the Dominican Republic and you're like, oh, Boca Chica, they're like, oh, there's better beaches than that. But I thought it was a really nice beach.
Okay. So again, as a tourist, what would be the one activity that you would want somebody to do?
Oh, 27 charcos in Puerto Plata.
Can you describe that for us?
Yeah. So it sounds kind of scary, but it's not. So this is the place. It's in Puerto Plata, and it's charcos means waterfalls. That's what I've been told. So you basically go, and I think this was somewhere from $30 to $50. Sorry for the wide gap. I don't remember how much it was. And you can go and you can even rent water shoes. I don't know what they are for like $2 if you don't want to ruin your nice running shoes or tennis shoes. And then that price also includes a lunch buffet after the excursion, which is totally worth it. So you go to this place and then you hike up a mountain and you have a life vest and a helmet. And you go up with one of the tour guides and you hike for, I don't know, it seemed like 20-30 minutes. And you get up a mountain, and then the only way back down, of course if you don't take the same route you came up, is to go down these 27 different waterfalls / like slides through the rocks, and it's all natural. So you get up there and you gotta jump, and if you don't jump, they joke that they will push you. but it's fun. It was amazing, and you'd go and the water was so clear and it was beautiful. And at one point we were jumping from one waterfall into the other one, and it was like inside a cave, and it was so cool. And you're just like, it's the water's so blue, it's so beautiful. It's just look it up online, and it's just beautiful, breathtaking. Like,
and what's it called again for him?
27 Charcos, and that's spelled Charcos.
And how far, like, how big of a jump is that?
They're not that big, so maybe this is bad, like 15 feet. Some of them, not all of them are like jumps. Some of them are, you slide down these rocks that are like a slide basically, and it's all safe. And they tell you where to jump. They'll say like, hey, jump in this area so that you don't hit any rocks. And like I said, you have a life vest, so you're not gonna drown. If you don't know how to swim, that's fine. My professor went on it with us, and he was like terrified, but by the time he got to like the 7th one, he was fine and he enjoyed it, and he said he would bring his students back the next year. So it's pretty safe.
Nice. Where else did you end up going for fun though? And just as a tourist, or?
Yeah, so we also did this other place called Paradise Island, and it's also in Puerto Plata. And you take this boat out to this tiny island, and it's tiny. Like, it's just basically a piece of sand in the middle of the ocean. And you go there, and they have these little huts, and you'll have your own we got our own little private hut with a guy who basically served us drinks, fruits, and provided us with snorkeling gear, and what else? And just basically gave us like a place to just hang out, and we swam and drank water, and drank alcoholic beverages.
How much was that?
And that one was also, I think, $50.
Okay.
And then we went snorkeling, and I'd never been snorkeling in my life, and that was so awesome. I got to see tons of fishes, and the guy even let us swim like pretty far out and showed us other places, and it was beautiful. That's the second place that I'd recommend.
Okay.
Yeah. And then there's other ones, but I don't know if you want to hear about all the other ones. So we were there for a long time, so we did tons of stuff.
All right, well, I might have to just get you back for like a part 2 of the DR or something. Is there any like particular food or dish that was unique to the Dominican Republic? Yeah,
so they are known for their beans and rice. That's what they have all the time. And then they have a dish called mofongo, and it's not, I don't know if, so basically it's plantain, but the green plantain, and it's smashed up, and then you put meat inside of it. You can put like shrimp or anything like that, and that's how you eat it. So it's a pretty good dish. It's apparently different from the Puerto Rican mofongo, because Puerto Rican mofongo I think uses sweet plantains, and it's not the same.
Is there anything here that you would compare that taste to for that meal?
No.
Okay.
Maybe consistency of yuca, but I don't know how many of your listeners have had yuca.
Yeah.
So, no.
All right. How expensive was that particular meal?
We went to a really nice restaurant to get that one, so it was like $10.
US?
Yeah, $10. So, it depends on where you go, but I would say somewhere from like $8 to $15.
Okay. What about, how much would you say like the average meal was for you?
About $8, because remember, you have to pay for water over there too.
Yeah.
Water isn't free, so but water is usually only like 60 cents US.
Okay. Were there other places that you wanted to go to, or things that you wanted to try that you just didn't get to? Wow, because obviously you were busy.
Yeah. Well, there was tons of hiking places that we could have gone and hiked, and I wish we had time to do it, but unfortunately we didn't. But I'm an outdoors person. There's also, if you're into partying and going to the clubs, which I didn't really do there, there's this one place that we were told about in Punta Cana, which is an indoor, like, or it's a cave, and they have a bar inside that cave, and it's like an indoor water bar thing, and everyone told us to go to that one. I'm not sure what the name is though.
Do you know what it's called? Yeah, okay, never mind.
Sorry.
Yeah, lovely. Thanks, Glorbo. So when you were at these tourist locations, or like the beaches, or again places that are known for high levels of tourist activity, did you really end up running into a lot of other tourists out there at those specific locations? Or?
No. Well, when we went to Punta Cana is where we went.
Okay.
Yeah, when we went to Punta Cana, that's where we ran into the most tourists because we did stay at a resort and everyone there was basically a tourist. And I would say that's the place where we saw the most.
So what about when you went to the beaches? Like how crowded were the beaches?
Oh, the beaches were wonderful except for Punta Cana. Once again, it's all
Just
tourists.
super crowded?
Punta Cana was not that it was super crowded, but there was chairs everywhere and it's a resort, so people were there every day. The beaches that we went, the other ones, it wasn't that crowded. It was.
What were they called? Which beaches didn't have that much activity?
So, like I said, there's the one Boca Chica. But the thing is, we would go really early in the morning. We'd go from 10 a.m. till about 6 p.m. And Boca Chica, when we got there at 10 a.m., was pretty empty, so we were able to get good seats. And the beaches that I'm going to mention, they're not beaches where you go and you put your towel down and an umbrella and you can lay there. These beaches all have restaurants on the beach, and the restaurants will rent you out their chairs, and that's where you lay down, and then you don't have to pay for them as long as you pay for a meal there. Okay. And then, of course, you have like free-flowing drinks, and you pay for those eventually. But Boca Chica, and then we went to a place called Juan Dolio, and that beach also was fine. And then we also had another beach in Samana, and that also had less people. Didn't have that many people.
Okay. What was that last beach's name?
It was in Samana. There's tons of beaches, but we just called it Samana, yeah.
So what would you say is, again, the biggest difference between being a Latino, or I guess Latina speaking Spanish tourist, and perhaps an American tourist that doesn't speak Spanish as a second language?
You're probably gonna have to pay a bit more
How
for
much
certain
really?
things.
Like taxis or...
Not necessarily taxis, and taxes is it's a whole different issue. But
wait, what do you mean?
Because first of all, if you go to a restaurant, here in the U.S., you get taxed and then you give a tip.
I meant a taxi.
Oh, taxi! I thought you were talking about taxes because once again. Oh, taxi.
Like, would you say like that you might get ripped off a little bit more on that?
Yeah,
if you did?
Definitely. Yeah. And we made friends with one taxi driver, and he drove us the entire trip. And he was telling us someone who would viewed from our place to the airport would charge us probably like $80-$90, and he only charged us $20.
What the heck?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's definitely something to be mindful of. And my next question was, did you ever feel like you were at risk of being exploited? So.
No. We made friends. I mean, I didn't think.
Oh, right. You did.
Yeah, we had. So the very first day.
But other tourists might be susceptible to.
Oh, yeah. Just. My recommendation is if you know someone who's been to the country, they can usually tell you about. They may know someone who knows someone there, and they will make sure you're safe. And I think it's good to just have someone that you know in that country. But I didn't feel exploited.
Okay.
But I don't think, and if you were exploited, it would only be by maybe you'd have to pay an extra couple dollars, except for the taxi. Except for the taxi,
you might have to pay a little bit more. Okay. Yeah, so we're about to start to round this out as far as traveling to the Dominican Republic is concerned, but are there things that you feel that haven't really been said about the Dominican Republic, or even like the people that live there, as a whole, that you think that other travelers should know about right now? Or
well, first of all, most places there is no AC. It's all usually there's fans, and people there wear pants all the time. So
because of the mosquitoes, right?
Huh?
Mosquitoes.
Yes. So be aware that you're gonna be hot a lot, and that there's gonna be tons of mosquitoes. So the one thing to bring with you is bug spray, because that saved my life until I stopped using it, and then it was a horror. Yeah, because be aware. I mean, there's malaria and there's other diseases, and Zika was an issue for a while. So just be aware of that. And if you do end up staying for longer than a week or so, just be aware that things can be pretty costly. Just
time out, because is the Zika still like a big thing out there right now, or like?
I mean, Zika is still an issue everywhere because obviously we don't have any cure for it at the moment. So just as malaria is still an issue,
right?
Just take precautions, but it's not a huge issue like it was last year or 2 years ago. Yeah. And if you're pregnant, be careful. Don't travel. Just you,
Yeah, you just gotta keep that thing in mind. All right, so with that said, I'm going to round this out for travel to the Dominican Republic. I would like to thank you, obviously, for chirping in a bit and giving some people some helpful travel tips.
Yeah, no problem.
And at this point, if you would like to continue listening to our listeners, is there anything that you would still like to discuss as far as like your research goes, or kind of briefly discuss your research of the health-related issues that you were kind of studying? Just like a brief overview.
Sure. So like I said, I was there doing research for 7.5 weeks. What we looked at was diabetes. And so we're looking at type 2 diabetes, a preventable disease. And we were interested in knowing, what are the people's perceptions of diabetes, of like Dominican perception, because how you perceive a disease can determine how you address the disease.
Right.
If you think that diabetes isn't that big of a deal, you'll continue doing a certain lifestyle that may make that disease a lot worse and eventually lead to things as death and amputations. So that was one part of our research. And then we had a second part where we went and we looked at medical records, and we just wanted to look at the population that's admitted to a diabetic clinic in Santo Domingo. So, and that's just to see, what's the average age? Are they mainly males? Are they mainly females? What kind of procedures do they have? Have they done? Is it, amputations, or are they getting a drainage or something? Something like that. And that's just to describe the population there. So that was my research. So
was diabetes like a really kind of widespread problem that you were running into?
Yeah, so diabetes is a huge issue over there. It's a disease that, once again, it's preventable, but because of lack of resources, lack of education, a lot of people have it. And there's not a lot of research done in the Dominican Republic. There is a lot of research done in Latin American countries, but all Latin America, one country doesn't define what the entire Latin American country is. So although there's research in South America, that doesn't mean that it really pertains to the Dominican Republic. And the Dominican Republic is such a diverse culture. So it's a huge issue.
You've finished the research, or is that still ongoing right now?
We collected the data, and now that I'm back in the U.S., we're going to start analyzing it. So I don't actually have any of the statistics or anything like that results done. No. For addressing the perceptions, what we did with that is we basically got Dominicans in a group, and we just asked them questions and just saw, what they know about the disease, and do they know about the treatments, and do they know about the consequences. And from just seeing the responses, a lot of people weren't aware, that there's technically there's 3 different types of diabetes, and that's type 1, type 2, and gestational. And a lot of people just know it as sugar in the blood. And then
so it was a lot of data collection from medical records, but then also like a focus group interview component goes into it.
Yeah.
For patients. Okay.
Well, the focus group was just any Dominican, regardless of whether they had diabetes or not. And the medical records was from diabetic patients.
Okay.
Yeah. And that was my research. I mean, hopefully we get some good data out of it. And
what was your research question?
So the first one is just what are the perceptions of type 2 diabetes among the Dominicans in rural and urban areas. Unfortunately, we were only able to interview people in urban areas, basically Santo Domingo. And then the second one, we're actually going to change it, but it's just what is describing the population of admitted patients at that one diabetic foot clinic.
Okay. Is there anything else that you'd like to share about your research, or is there anything that you personally would like to hope to find out about?
I mean, I hope that this opens door for more research, because it's more so of a pilot study. Like I said, there's a lack of research in that field in the Dominican Republic, and a lot of the resources do go to diseases such as HIV, but HIV is only 1% of the population. So I think a lot of that resource needs to be allocated in other areas, such as diabetes. And I hope that this research opens up the window or open the door for other people to come in and continue that research that we've done. Because we were only able to collect, data from 40 people for the perceptions. And it'd be nice to conduct more focus groups in different areas because rural populations is different from urban populations, right. I would assume. But it would be nice to do the research and see if that really is true, because someone who lives in an urban or rural area may not necessarily live so close to a hospital.
Right.
So if you have a barrier of transportation, or you have a barrier of, access to education and access to, all that treatments, then you're less likely to get treated for diabetes. You're less likely to be diagnosed with diabetes. So I think that would be interesting to do. But yeah, I hope this research opens up the opportunity for more researchers to come in and continue these research projects. And with that, implementation of, educational groups and all that, bringing awareness of this disease would be fantastic, because I'm all about prevention, like preventative medicine, rather than, treating someone who's already sick. If we can prevent it, then why not?
Exactly. Okay. Cool. Well then, again, thank you. We're going to round this out. Episode 3 of Doobie's World with Dominican Republic. We went to the Dominican Republic. Glorbell here doing the interview. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Enjoy the rest of your time, and good luck with the rest of your research.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.